Let's do it together. And with our message today, please welcome once again Reverend Martin.
We're going to be talking about mountains and molehills today. Now, in spiritual teachings around the world, mountains are symbolic of both toil and triumph. Being on the mountaintop is a metaphor for a peak experience or reaching great heights of achievement. Being faced with a mountain is a metaphor for obstacles, obstructions, and impediments on the path. We all have encounters with mountains, although it may seem at times that we have more of the obstacle variety than the exhilaration of the heights. Mountains of obstacle can be very real, but often we create mountains where none exist. Making a mountain out of a molehill is a saying that goes back at least to the 1500s. It refers to overreactive melodramatic behavior where we make too much of a minor issue. And someone who makes a mountain out of a molehill is said to be greatly exaggerating the severity of the situation. In cognitive psychology, this form of distortion is called magnification. It's all about proportion. Are we seeing things as they really are, or are we exaggerating? Robert Fulghum, who wrote the bestseller Everything or All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, said, if you neck, if you have nothing to eat, if your home is on fire, then you've got a problem. Everything else is inconvenience. Well, why do we tend to blow things out of proportion? Psychologists have tried to figure this out, and one of their techniques when a patient makes an exaggerated negative statement is to ask, what if? What if that were true? The interesting thing about what if questions is they simply generate more what if questions. This process can carry your thinking from a minor issue to one of monstrously life-altering proportions. This is known as catastrophizing, and we've all done it, usually when we're feeling down, anxious, or just simply tired. But for many people who are chronic worriers, it becomes a daily pattern of thinking, which is distressing and debilitating. In studies of worry, psychologists ask what their main worry is at the moment. And then they ask the question, what is it about your worry that worries you? So for example, if someone says they're worried about finances, the doctor may say, what is it that worries you about your finances? If the person replies, I may have to leave my home if I can't pay the mortgage, they then ask, what is it about leaving your home if you cannot pay the mortgage that worries you? And so on until the person can think of no more responses. Now, interestingly enough, chronic worriers will continue with this process for much longer than non-worriers, thinking up many more responses and elaborating on their initial worry with more worries in the process. Now, here's a little example that captures the absurdity of catastrophizing. Right here, this morning in this cozy room, sitting among friends, the example may seem ridiculous, but you'll recognize the pattern of thought and the distress those thoughts cause, despite the rather fantastic conclusion that the chain of thoughts leads to. You'll be able to recognize each of these thought steps the hypothetical person made while thinking about his or her original worry. The original worry in this case was simply getting good grades in school. So the question pops up, what if you don't get good grades in school? And here are some of the answers. I won't live up to my expectations. I'll be disappointed in myself. I'll lose my self-confidence. My loss of self-confidence would spread to other areas of my life. I wouldn't have as much control as I'd like. I'd be afraid of facing the unknown. I'd become very anxious. Anxiety would lead to further loss of self-confidence. I wouldn't get my confidence back. I'd feel as if I didn't have any control over my life. I'd be susceptible to things that normally wouldn't bother me. I'd become more and more anxious. I'd have no control at all, and I'd become mentally ill. I'd become dependent on drugs and therapy. The drugs would deteriorate my body. I'd be in pain. I'd die. I'd end up in hell. Now, this person has gone from getting good grades in school to ending up in hell, and has gone through drug addiction, physical pain, and mental illness along the way. Now, this may seem ridiculous, but to this person, it's all very real. And if we're honest, we'll realize that we've let our imaginations run riot with scenarios that are nearly as absurd. It's the emotion of worry that turns our molehills into mountains. Worry is an all too human but non-productive reaction to challenges or perceived challenges. So here's what you need to remember about worry. Probably 80 to 90% of things that we worry about are never going to happen. So every time you worry about the possibility of a bad thing happening and it doesn't, don't tell yourself that it was your worries that prevented it from happening. That's what we call superstitious thinking. If you do keep telling yourself that your worry prevents bad things from happening, you'll find yourself needing to worry every time you're faced with a possible problem. And that's a very destructive habit. Molehills. Molehills are those pesky little mounds of dirt that gophers and moles make as they make their tunnels just beneath the Earth's surface. Physically speaking, a molehill forms when an animal takes dirt from somewhere and piles it up somewhere else. Psychologically speaking, making a mountain out of a molehill essentially is a massive displacement of psychological dirt from one place to another. We dig up dirty issues from here and there and pile them up until it seems as if we're facing something enormous. And this tends to happen because it seems easier to pile up dirt somewhere else than to deal with it in the moment. We may have psychological dirt, mess, or trouble in our lives that feels so enormous that we can't deal with it directly. So bit by bit, we bury it in the subconscious. Call it suppression, repression, or denial. You get the idea. It's also known as sweeping dirt under the rug. The subconscious mind is a burial ground for unwanted parts of ourselves, experiences, feelings, thoughts, impulses. And in other words, the dirt of our lives. We bury those parts of ourselves and hope to be done with them. But it doesn't work that way. These unwanted issues tend to take on a life of their own. They don't just die, they're still in there, just waiting to be triggered by something or someone. Usually the trigger is insignificant by itself, but when it triggers the repressed negative emotion, suddenly a minor issue seems to be a really big deal. And that's how a molehill becomes a mountain. Do you see this at work when someone does some little thing that causes you to blow up? It's not what the person did. It was probably a lot of things that the person had done over time, or something somebody did that you couldn't really respond to, like maybe the boss, or it might have been the last straw in a series of events that you didn't deal with at the time. Fortunately, if we have the power to make a mountain out of a molehill, then it follows that we also have the power to make a molehill out of a mountain. One of the best ways to make daily life easier, lighter, and more positive and less stressful is to learn how to not make mountains out of molehills. So when you find yourself going there, try using this stop phrase. Something like, wait a minute, or cancel, or this is not my truth. These stop phrases make you pause and reflect on the negative feelings that are starting to form. If you can pause for a moment, instead of reacting reflexively, you can put the situation into perspective. So ask yourself one or more of these 3 questions. Number 1, who cares? This one is simple and sharp and helps you let go of the small stuff, the stuff that doesn't really matter in a relationship, that angry and attacking email that you might get, someone cutting you off in traffic. Who cares? Have you ever noticed that an aggressive driver can cut you off, zoom past you, and disappear down the road, and a couple of miles later, you arrive at a traffic light and you look in the next lane and there's the very same driver? His zooming past you didn't matter because once again, you're both in the same place. Who cares? This simple question can give you a smarter perspective on what's really important in life. It can help you cool off aggravations instead of overreacting and wasting a chunk of your life. Question number 2, will this matter 5 years from now, or even 5 weeks from now? This one is really powerful. It can make just about any difficulty seem rather trivial and not as heavy as you might have imagined. It is a question that can help you see an issue for how it really is and how big it truly is. You get tied up in traffic and you're 5 minutes late for a meeting. In 5 years, will it matter? You mailed a letter and a week later it came back because you didn't put a stamp on it. Will you even remember that in 5 months? This question, will it matter then, makes it easy to start thinking more clearly about now, and it can help you find a small step that you can take today to deal with the issue. There's a British journalist named John Logue who wrote, "It is almost impossible to overestimate the importance of most things." Question number 3. Does anyone have it worse than I have it right now? This is one of the quickest ways to stop feeling sorry for yourself in one of those mountain building situations, and it can help you to feel grateful for everything you still have. Did a loved one die? Somewhere, someone's entire family was killed in an accident. Have you been diagnosed with a serious disease? Somewhere, someone is dealing with several life-threatening conditions. Using this question and seeing how other people live and the issues they face gets us out of our narrow and self-centered perspective, and we become more compassionate, positive, and action-oriented. Who cares? Will it matter later? Is anyone having it worse than I am? Just by asking these three questions, you can usually whittle your self-made mountains down to size and get a more helpful view of life again. Look at your mountain. Is it really that big? Probably not. It's almost certain that you'll never meet a mountain so big that others haven't already conquered it. But you'll never conquer the mountain just by saying so. You've got to stop walking around your mountain with your eyes on the ground. Look up at it and start taking it on. Stick your tongue out at it to show them who's boss, if you like, but whatever you do, simply decide to start climbing. Look at your mountain. And remember, it's not so much where we look as what we see. We mostly make up our minds about something, and then we see what we decide to see. And this confirms that we were right. We get so caught up in what is bad and what is good that we can lose sight of reality. For example, we all know that the measles disease is bad. I had the so-called German measles when I was 5 years old, and I went almost totally deaf for 2 weeks. The doctors had no idea what to do about it. Now, fortunately, my hearing came back when the illness ran its course. So yes, the measles disease is bad. It's currently making a comeback because of anti-vaccine sentiments. But what if we've looked at measles in the wrong way? I read about some groundbreaking medical research. Doctors are curing certain cancers by injecting patients with the measles virus. Now, we think of cancer as being a big disease and measles as being a little disease. But what if measles could wipe out cancer? The molehill would have defeated the mountain. There are all kinds of things that we label bad that may be useful after all. Bee venom is being used to treat rheumatoid arthritis. And who knows how many other bad things may have positive benefits. As Shakespeare wrote, there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The same can be said of our traumatic experiences in life. We can use them to our benefit if we have the right attitude. A hurtful past can lead to a beautiful present. Writing in the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes tells us, never limit your view of life by any past experience. The possibility of life is inherent within the capacity to imagine what life is, backed by the power to produce this imagery, or divine imagination. The illusion is in the way we look at things. We have looked at poverty, degradation, and misery until they've assumed gigantic proportions. Now, we must look at harmony, plenty, prosperity, peace, and right action. Look at them until they appear. A lot of what we define as bad ends up making us stronger and better people. People who don't shrivel up and blow away in the least little storm. If you will call your problems experiences, and remember that every experience develops some latent force within you, you will grow victorious and happy, however adverse the situation seems to be. On your way up the mountain, you may encounter a rock slide or other unexpected hurdles. You can treat them as trip-ending disasters, or you can enjoy the extra excitement of scrambling over and around them. We've all heard that if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you can move mountains. Why a mustard seed? In ancient Israel, the mustard seed was synonymous with tiny, and yet the mustard seed grows into the largest of any of the herbs of the area. It grows so big that birds perch in its branches. That tiny little mustard seed contains great potential. So, if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you can accomplish big things. Now, notice that Jesus did not say that if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you will move mountains. He said that you can move mountains. There's a big difference. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you will do something. The doing part is entirely up to you. It's true that a mountain seems awfully big, but the point that Jesus was making was this: nothing is so big that it can withstand the power of the infinite. Or we could say everything, no matter how big, is small compared to eternity. Do you have enough faith to move a mountain? If not, turn the mountain into a molehill and then move that. Nothing is great and nothing is small to the divine, so we should never wonder if what we're going to do will be hard or easy. Within every one of us is all the power we could ever use in every situation. And the bigger the challenge, the more power we can use. And the more power we use, the bigger we become. The amount of power needed to climb a mountain is always available to us. It's up to us to use it. Our size is in direct proportion to the mountain. Emerson is said to have written, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." In other words, we're all bigger on the inside than we are on the outside. And there are two ways, therefore, of meeting difficulties. You alter the difficulties, or you alter yourself to meet them. What a difference it would make if we felt that way when we face the mountains in our lives. The reality of life is that we often learn more through our failures than we do through our successes. Successes are satisfying, and they're important to keep us encouraged. However, failure is our greatest teacher, and that is because in every failure, there's an opportunity to learn, to grow, to become stronger, better people. That is what climbing the mountain is all about. Not to beat ourselves up when we fail, but to grow stronger. Michael Beckwith frequently says, "Don't tell God about your problems, tell your problems about God." And so in the context of this talk this morning, we could say, don't tell God how big the mountain is. Tell the mountain how big God is. You're not done yet. That was the rallying cry that powered Ann Lorimer of Paradise Valley, Arizona, through an 8-day climb up Mount Kilimanjaro. She said, "I'm glad I did it, but I still say it was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life." And she's not kidding about that. Climbing the world's tallest freestanding mountain involves grueling days and frigid nights with temperatures dipping below zero. She and her 14 counterparts battled steep ascents and thinning air, and at one point sleeping only a few hours, and then hiking for nearly 20 hours to reach Kilimanjaro's highest peak. For the first 3 days, the group hiked for only 3 to 5 hours per day before setting up camp. In the afternoons, they would practice more hiking to help acclimate themselves to the thinning air. Now, the key to a safe ascent lies in taking slow, measured steps, resting for a moment with your weight on your back foot to allow oxygen to reach the muscles in the front leg. And often Lorimer had trouble with her pacing. The team leader would say, slow down, watch your steps. She said, in the beginning, you think the guides are going so slow, but then you realize that's what you have to do. And the climb was going smoothly until members of the team started to get sick on day 3. And some of the team decided to abandon the climb. The bug hit Lorimer as well, but she insisted on continuing. You're not done yet. The climb on the 5th day took them above 14,000 feet, and she was feeling better and climbed to a small mountain lake and oasis where the team camped for 2 days to rest and prepare for their surge to the top. The team, Lorimer, and their guides started for the summit at 10 p.m. on the 6th day of the hike, picking their way along and among rocky outcroppings with only headlamps and starlight to show the way. She said, you'd hike for 2 hours, and you'd see this big black mountain and stars, and then you'd hike for 2 more hours, and you'd see the same thing. It's like, where's the summit? Lorimer finally reached the top peak at 8:45 a.m. on July 12, 2015. The top is 19,341 feet. Once she got there, she was too tired to be excited. But you're not done yet. You not only have to ascend the mountain, but you have to descend it. After a few photos and videos, they started making their way back down, stopping to rest only after they reached a safer altitude. Now, why would Anne Lorimer accept such a tremendous challenge? 2 reasons. First, she undertook the journey to raise awareness for the Challenge Youth Fund administered by the Arizona Community Foundation, which supports services to disadvantaged children throughout Arizona. And her successful climb gathered tremendous publicity and donations for the cause she passionately believed in. And her second reason for making the difficult, dangerous climb, she wanted to send a message to other seniors. Life continues after 50. You're not done yet. And she proved that life continues well after 50. You see, Anne Lorimer earned a Guinness Book World Record for being the oldest woman ever to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. How old? She was 85. She discovered the truth of what famed mountaineer Sir Edmund Hillary said, it's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. Very often, we can turn our mountains into molehills, but even if we can't, we have what it takes to climb the mountain. If we can't change the difficulty, we can change ourselves so that we can transcend the difficulty. And if we have the courage to face every mountain in our lives and never give up until we conquer each one and learn from each experience, we'll find that we have indeed grown bigger than the mountain. The mountains become molehills, and the molehills become nothing because we are bigger than them all. Namaste. So right now, let's go within. I invite you to become very comfortable in your seat. Take a deep breath. Take another one. close your eyes, shut out any distractions, and let's spend these next few moments knowing the truth together. There is a power for good in the universe, and it is expressing good everywhere, all the time. It is expressing good as me. For I am made by that power for good, made out of that power for good, and I am always one with that power for good. I use that power today, and my thoughts, words, and actions are attuned to a greater demonstration of life than I have ever experienced before. The universe is constantly expanding, and so am I. Today is a new day, and I am a new creation. I have new ideas and new capacities which take me to new and better states of being. The light of spirit always goes before me, illuminating my path. Every person, place, and thing which I encounter on my path is an opportunity for greater good to manifest in my life. Every situation I encounter along the way is dealt with by my awareness of new possibilities. Every person I meet today provides a new opportunity for expressing the divine love within. Every transaction I make in the marketplace of life is an opportunity for financial blessing. Every blessing that I receive and experience is proof that God is constantly supplying me with new channels of giving and receiving. Every step I take on my path provides a new opportunity to experience beauty and joy. Today is the day which God has made, and I rejoice in it. I am thankful to be in the continual flow of good, and I am thankful that Spirit is constantly making all things bright and new, and so it is.